Good evening and welcome to our show. I'm Randy Dixon. I'm artistic director of Unexpected Productions, and I have a great opportunity tonight to introduce you to a really great show. These guys are really fun, and I won't, put any pressure on them, but I think you're going to really enjoy it. And we're trying to figure out exactly what's going on here online. And as we're doing that, we appreciate your time and your interest and anything else that you want to give us. That's great. And so we're doing shows Wednesday through Saturdays right now. Wednesday we have duos. Thursday we have the wild card, which is a long form of some kind. Friday we're doing happy hour, and Saturday we're doing this kind of experimental stuff where we're trying stuff one off. Maybe we'll do runs of stuff. We'll see how it goes. And tonight we're really lucky to kick this off with some guests we're collaborating with tonight. And I'm so honored that these guys are doing this show for us, because like I said, I really love it and find it to be really unique, and what a great use of this technology. And so we have Camilla Franklin, Alex Engelberg, who are doing Storyboard. And some of you know Alex because he plays music for us a lot, which we're also really appreciative of. But they've combined music and illustration. And tonight they're going to share with you a few stories, I think three stories, in kind of different genres and different paces. And we will be back at the end. I will come back and do a little Q&A debriefing with them about sort of the process and how it works. But yeah. Yeah, and in the meantime, we have lots of Q&As happening. Today we had a thing with Ron, a session with Ron Hippie on musical improv. We have classes that are going to start to launch online, just again, trying to adjust to all this stuff. So do pay attention to our webpage and to the Facebook pages and to everywhere else that you can get us. And as always, if you enjoy it, please feel free to make a donation, either before, after, during the show. There should be a little donate button that's available to you. Cool. So without further ado, I'd like to bring out Alex and Camilla, if you guys want to come on out. There they are. There's a hi guys. So cool. I'm gonna turn it over to you guys, and I'll be back at the end to talk to you guys. So have fun. All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the intro, Randy. So yeah, we're Storyboard. I'm Alex.
I'm Camilla.
And we have been doing this format for, 3 weeks? And we're super excited to bring it to this stream. Just to reiterate, I'm playing music, and I have this keyboard here. And Camilla?
I'm going to be screen sharing Photoshop as I draw.
Excellent. So yeah, we're gonna just try to combine those to make some stories. And so let's just get started. Let's kick it off with just kind of a classic animated short, and perhaps going for some Pixar / Disney vibes here and there. We'll see what happens.
Unexpected friendships.
Yeah, exactly. Lessons learned, quests gone on, etc. And so to get us started, we would love to just get a title. So a title of like, it could be any title as long as it doesn't already exist, or doesn't belong to a thing that already exists, but just a title of an animated short that doesn't exist but should exist.
Yeah.
And
past shows that we've done are Shelley's Big Day, Revenge Served Slowly.
Yeah, Honky Little Goose.
Honky Little Goose.
That was a fun one.
That's a little goose that honked too loud.
I'll play some Jeopardy music while we get suggestions.
Can you do ska Jeopardy music?
Is there anybody in the chat?
Yeah, we've got a few suggestions.
Oh, sweet. Okay, I think my
have-
browser might have just froze.
Oh yeah,
so I
yours
didn't
just
see
isn't
it, but
refreshing.
yeah.
We have the wisdom tree, the sad unicorn's
Ooh.
revenge, the night the jelly attacked, and the isolated bunny. Doot Doot learns to sing. I like the night the jelly attacked. I like the wisdom tree. There's so much
These
good
are all
stuff
great.
here. Yeah.
Would you be okay with just making an executive decision? Because I don't seem to be seeing any of these, but whatever. All of those sound really awesome.
Let's do the wisdom tree because that was the very first one.
I love it. Okay, here we go.
All right. Here we go. My face is going away now. right.
That is not where I expected that story to go. But that was amazing. I love it.
Yeah, so that is an example of the sort of animated short that we have been doing for the past month or so in shows with other teams.
Mhm.
And they're very, very fun. But when we were given the opportunity to do this longer show, we started thinking about what might be other fun ways to do improvised animation, improvised shorts, particularly adding in that good old improv audience interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
And one thing we came up with just a few hours ago is that we both love video games. And in the realm of animation, animated films, animated shorts are a big sphere. But also on the cutting edge of animation is that beautiful, beautiful, hyper realistic CGI that you get in video games,
Yep.
which, as you can tell, we are eminently qualified to reproduce on the spot for you.
Yep. Yes.
So what we want to do is we wanted to try a sort of improvised choose your own adventure video game. It'll be a story, kind of like what we just did, but at certain points during the scene, I might write up a few different options for which way the story could go, which way you could lead the character, and I'll write vote in big letters next to it. And you can type into this the Twitch chat, and we're on Twitch, so it makes perfect sense. What the character should do next, what should happen. So when you see vote. If we put in like suggest, you can put in a suggestion, and we'll try to incorporate those into the story. That's
Yeah, and Sid says Telltale game style, which is absolutely correct, I believe. Yeah. Cool.
yeah, with
So
the same level
how do we
of
kick this off?
artistry and preparedness. What we were thinking is we could always do a kind of high fantasy epic quest RPG.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a setting where you would really like to see this story happen, we would love to get some settings for
Yeah.
a world or an environment. Could be high fantasy, could be somewhere totally different. And yeah, we'll see those suggestions. We'll build a game for you around it. I see library. Do you want to do a library adventure?
I'm very interested in that actually. Yeah.
I'm very interested in a library adventure too.
All right,
All
let's boot up the old cartridge and see what happens.
Yeah. Oop. Still there. One moment.
think our Twitch chat just got a high score on that game.
Well played.
Yes, excellent choices. Oh, wow,
I
that was
hope
really
that
fun.
everyone with a library science degree in the audience enjoyed. I believe there might actually be 2 of you.
Amazing. All right, I need a water break for like 3 seconds. Hold on. All right. So would you like to tee up this next art piece?
Yeah, we have maybe 3 to 5 minutes for this. Here's my take. Animation is always moving forward. There are these great pieces of animation from our past, and one of the amazing things about it is that it's always pushing the envelope.
Absolutely.
And we've had, classic animation, cutting edge animation, experimental animation. What is the next frontier of weird, trippy animation? AKA, if Alex plays some real weird stuff on his keyboard and I try some stuff in Photoshop I've never tried before, what new frontiers will emerge? That's what animation is all about.
Absolutely.
I think so. We're gonna do a maybe 5-minute ish experimental animation sequence using whatever tools pop into mind. It might be slightly less narrative. We'll see how it goes. What we wanted as a suggestion was for you to think back on a memorable dream that you've had, perhaps recently, perhaps further back, and distill your recollection of that dream, either what it literally was or just how it made you feel. Take that dream and distill it into 2 words and give us those 2 words. For example, a memorable dream I had was plates flying and Curse Museum, which is maybe bled into that library story.
Also extremely on brand for dreams that I would expect Camilla to have.
Oh, these are so good. I have so many questions about all of these. Teapot Vengeance?
That's
Transdimensional Tango. Alex, what inspires you musically?
I mean, the transdimensional tango, I feel like that is getting me very ready to transcend into the next dimension of art.
Why don't we do a transdimensional tango?
This is, yeah, I am. We are about to perform an exact recreation of the dream that led to that suggestion. Enjoy.
Yeah, give me. Yep.
Wow.
So you have that to look forward to in the coming years of animation.
Yes.
That's
And
that's the
sweet
future you're
dreams.
looking at.
All right, so I think that's the time we have for doing stories, and yeah, Randy, do you wanna jump into some after chat?
Sure. First of all, bravo. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was great. Um, yeah, so we'll take a couple minutes to have a little conversation about this. So, first of all, I mean, how did you guys, discover the connection and the link that you wanted to do this? What was was it more of a visual inspiration, musical inspiration? What, you know,
Hmm.
where did it come from?
I think I remember probably my earliest memory of discussing this format was probably when theaters were starting to do virtual improv in quarantine, and I saw a couple of those shows, and I saw what people were doing, and I basically um, it started with basically me messaging Camilla saying. We should figure out something that we can do so that we can be on one of these shows that's virtual. So we were trying to figure out like what we could do that would work, and
Yeah, and particularly I think we were looking at things that we could do digitally that might be even easier digitally than in person, something that I wouldn't even think to necessarily do in person. So instead of mapping a format that we really liked doing, because we were doing a lot of musical improv and having trouble mapping that over to digital with lags and things, what could we do specifically for digital that would be really fun?
yeah.
And
Oh,
Alex wanted to play music.
yeah,
I
yeah.
normally don't. I've never improv illustrated before, but I illustrate for during the day for work,
Mhm.
and had always been curious about whether that would work, whether that would be possible.
Yeah. And I also remember uh, like going into that like I selfishly really wanted to find a way to perform because I love to play underscoring for improv and stuff, and but I know that like I did a couple of initial tests with Camilla and others trying to see if we could do musical improv over something like this, and it didn't really work because the latency made it hard to sing. And I was like, well, underscoring still does work and is really fun. So trying to find a format that would have underscoring as like a really big component of it, like lended itself particularly well to the remote format, I think.
Cool. Um, excuse me. So you're both drawing off of each other, um, and talk a little bit about that relationship. So, like, you're watching Camilla draw, and that draws musical inspirations out, and also hearing Alex's music. How does that affect what you're doing?
It's funny because usually if someone, I think if someone were to ask us like who's like giving and taking like in this relationship, I think we would both say that we're taking more from the other person,
Mhm.
uh, and I find that really interesting, which probably is probably good. I think that we both have that perception, but from my side, it definitely feels like I'm just sort of I feel like I'm basically an audience member, just along for the ride of whatever is happening in Camilla's brain, and I get to either like match what's happening, or in some cases, I can actually kind of predict where she's going with it. In which case, I can meet her at like a really dramatic moment or something like that. But it feels like for me, I'm mostly just following.
Hmm.
Mhm. I'm always trying to listen and be really responsive to that because with these shorts, whether it's Pixar shorts or Looney Tunes, the music dictates everything about the form and about the story. And so I want to be as responsive as possible and to really fold that in. Um, and I know Alex well enough that I can draw something a little bit out of the blue, and I know that he will respond to it and turn it into something interesting. At the same time, there have been many moments where I have had no idea what's coming next in the story, and something in the tone of the music or a little flourish has made me realize, oh, it's a beat with this sort of emotion,
Yeah.
and that dictates where the story goes.
Which I remember us talking after one of our sets and you told me that, and I was like, wait, really? Like that offer I made was actually, because I just assumed you knew what you were doing. Like I assumed you knew what was happening, and I was just trying to guess what you were about to do. But then that guess ended up being an offer for what she actually did.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a two-part question. First part is related to what you're doing in terms of in relation to doing improv live with an audience. What's the difference for you guys in terms of how does it feel or how does it sit?
I think just the audience feedback is obviously a big one, and like just when you're performing on a stage, that you're like you your sort of goal is to be super wired into the feedback loop between something on stage happening and audience reacting, and so online then that totally gets taken away, and but at the same time like that gets replaced by chat essentially. So I basically try to keep chat open for pretty much anything I do online, and that is also really interesting because the feedback that I do see in chat in real time is significantly more detailed than a laugh or a cheer or something. So like I'll see it's rarer that someone will bother to like type out how they're feeling about what they're seeing, but when they do, then it's like, oh, I just got like basically a very specific like review of this like second of improv, and that's like also is a good input to the feedback mechanism.
One of the most interesting things to experiment with has been the pacing. Because when you're improvising live, you generally have a pretty good feel for the audience's level of engagement, whether it's through laughs or just through the energy in the space. My glasses are so reflective. And you can sort of tell when it's time to wrap something up or when you should really sit in a moment. And it can be a little bit harder to gauge with this, especially when we were just practicing it between ourselves and didn't have an audience. Because while we are trying to look and see the feedback, we're also like working pretty furiously and pretty quickly for a story that can be pretty simple. And so figuring out the right tempo and the right sort of patience level and how much we can sit in things and how much to keep it moving has been a really neat thing to examine that I have never had to think as intentionally about before.
So the second part of the question, or second question related to it, is you're discovering these things now online in the environment that we're in, and at some point, hopefully, this will all be over, and maybe you can take this into a live component and being there. What do you see as, I don't know, advantages, tools, things you won't be able to get other than the direct feedback, in terms of like taking this and then putting it in front of an audience? Because to me, it's really interesting. Like here, you're at the forefront of our attention because we're watching you.
Yeah.
If we were in a theater where perhaps we have other actors, perhaps there's something else, is that translation thing gonna get in the way? Is it gonna somehow mute a little bit of what's happening? I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are.
I know like one thing that I know feels different between this and regular scenes is sort of the pacing at which you see the information unfold, where it's like you have to wait for like 10 or 20 seconds to see like what Camilla's about to draw, and I'm curious. I would be really curious how that works in with a live audience because they have to sit there and watch. And I think that my guess is from the online audience that they are willing to just watch because it's very captivating and it's awesome. But I think when in a physical theater, there's a little bit more pressure to like have their attention. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's added games or dimensions. Like when I've done shows with Alex and he's playing accompaniment, it's always really fun to watch him play and that's why we have the little box of him in the corner.
Yes.
And I don't have a camera set up right now where someone could be illustrating and you could see them illustrating. And that's another level of performance, to like performing being an illustrator and how you are expressing that, which is something I haven't thought about or experimented with it at all. And I'm sure there are certain live formats on stage where it would be interesting and valuable for like people to be able to see me being like, what does an angry person look like, and going like, to try to mirror the emotion of the scene, which I've been told I do. Or whether it's something where I'm invisible and interfacing with live actors on stage.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different interesting ways to, interesting questions, not necessarily things that subtract from it, but just different relationships.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting watching this stuff online. I mean, I am impressed and amazed that I'm so drawn into it, because as you're drawing and as the music's happening, again, I'm kind of telling my own story while it's going. And there's so many shows where that isn't really happening, where it's like, oh, we're going to tell you everything, versus, watching stuff emerge and the satisfaction that happens, for instance, in the illustration where, I want something to happen and then boom, is it that character? Yeah, it is that character. Awesome. And how you're pulling that out of the audience, getting the audience engaged. And
that's interesting, because I also see this comment from Tony that it's interesting that we can talk about the experience with each other. I assume like in the comments, which I've noticed like people in the comments basically like conspiring with each other, trying to piece together what we're doing. And so that is another aspect that would definitely be different with the comment section versus not.
Yeah.
We had a bit in our set last night where I was writing out a line of dialogue and I accidentally named the wrong character. And I didn't notice at all until after the set. And then I went back to look in the comments and someone had commented on it. Like, oh, she called the sheep the goose by accident. And then together in the comments, they'd come up with a justification for it. And they're like, oh, the sheep's name is Goose. Oh, that's so fun. That's such a fun other layer. And I was like, oh, they're helping me out. They're like catching me on my mistakes and turning it into gifts. And there's like improv happening in that world too, in the comment space. And I love that.
That's amazing. Right. I did not know that.
Yeah, we're all natural storytellers. So
yeah.
Okay, a couple more things and then we'll be done. One is, are you, maybe this is not a fair question, but are you surprised by where the music goes or where the illustration goes during the course of a story? Or are you kind of like, oh, here's a direction it's kind of going and I'm just gonna go that direction? Or does the mood and the music or the characters in the illustration somehow surprise you? I mean, do you ever play some music or draw an illustration where you're like, where'd that come from? Or, whoa, wasn't expecting that.
I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, but I find that because I'm doing so many things at once, I'm much more likely to surprise myself with what I draw. I think a lot of improv where there's a verbal restriction or a genre restriction, or particularly things like when you are working to music, because there is a pace and a flow and you kind of have to keep moving with it, you are less likely to hold back or wait until you have the right idea.
Right.
So I find myself having those delightful improv moments where you surprise yourself much more when I'm working with Alex.
Yeah, I think most of me surprising myself usually comes from little technical glitches in what I'm doing on the keyboard, because I mean, this is my keyboard at home and I have a lot less experience using this than the keyboard at the theater for doing improv. So I'll be kind of frantically scrolling around trying to remember like where the marimba was on this keyboard, and sometimes I'll pick the wrong instrument and then play that, and then that's then an offer I now have to justify for like how the music goes essentially. Or I'll play a wrong note, and now I have to find a chord that includes that note, so it makes sense.
Right.
So
Cool. All right. So I guess as we're wrapping stuff up, I'd be curious to hear, I mean, I love what you guys are doing. And I just wonder, do you see more options, tools, whatnot?
I knew you were going to end this with a forward-looking, deep question.
So I'm just curious.
I totally do. I think yeah, this is something I think more people should be experimenting with. Just today we were playing around with like what technologies are out there that could maybe let multiple artists do the same scene or something like that. Turns out there's not a lot of technology, but some of it does work. And I think that in general, I think that screen share improv or screen share prov
Right.
is a fairly unexplored avenue right now. Not necessarily drawing, but I think there's because you mentioned a lot about how a lot of online improv is all these talking heads in boxes, right? And how do we break out of that? And I think the answer is like finding some technology on a computer that can be screen shared, and then you have like then your scene will inherently be weird and different and interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Anything to add? No.
I don't know if I have anything specific to add. I mean, we have been playing around with how to have multiple illustrators. What are ways to use have like heads or live improvisers either in front of or behind illustration, or having I really like doing it and would love to continue doing it just where the only thing you hear is the music, the only thing you see is the illustration. But are there things you can do where you add voices in? And what dimension does that bring?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily like taking the format that we have closer to perfection, but like what are other stories that we can tell and access with this technology?
Right.
I think on the music side of that, there's also potential for innovation, and this isn't something I haven't explored a ton yet. But I think, like I mentioned earlier, musical improv as we currently know it is a lot harder online, and that kind of this virtual environment kind of eliminates a certain class of real time collaboration in music. Yes, very sad. But there's also a flip side of like I've never been able to use my own personal like music rig to play music in a live show like this before. So now like I could potentially see a future where people are using complicated music software to generate really bizarre, interesting music, and that will inherently give you a little bit more of a totally new area of music that you would get in like, oh, we have to be in this live theater with a certain set of gear.
Right. And I guess I would also ask, because it seems what you're doing is very complicated, and I get that, but it's also in a way simple based on sort of the things we're talking about, like adding other actors and doing multiple illustrators and things like that. And yeah, I mean, in your experience so far, just playing with this so far, and then also with what's happening in rehearsals and experimentation, do you see a wall where it becomes like now it's too much? Because I see that from time to time where we, in improv or even theater, we add all the stuff and then it becomes like, it's too busy, it's too much.
Yeah.
You see that happening or potentially happening?
I mean, maybe, but you don't find the edges of the sandbox until you bump into them. So,
Yeah.
We've only just started trying it, and I've found so many cool surprises and discoveries and things to do. And yeah, why not keep trying until you bump into the edge?
Yeah.
Right.
I think in my experience, usually, I think a good measure of like if it's too much is does the audience understand what you're doing? Like can they appreciate what it is that the tools that you have that you are using to create this art? And in terms of like throwing lots of technology at it, like it'll become too much if the audience doesn't actually understand like why we're using this and what the tool is. And that's why I like to, explain at the top of the set, like, I have this keyboard, Camilla has illustration, and like so we know that like this is what we're doing. And but I think that like there's definitely kind of unlimited ways to tighten things up from a technical perspective that will still allow the audiences to actually appreciate what's going on.
Right. So you guys are sort of doing, I don't know, what I like to promote at improv, which is you're telling them exactly what you're doing and then you do it, right?
Yeah.
It's that simple. So that's great. Anyway, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
And we hope to, I'm sure we'll have you back again doing
I hope
this.
so.
And
Yeah.
I know we're playing around with different stuff. So you can look for Alex and Camilla in other shows potentially down the road as we go along. And again, Storyboard is the form, and look for them. They're on a variety of different. What shows are you doing? I mean, what are the?
Yeah, you can pretty consistently catch us at Jet City Improv's online show. They've been looping in lots of different really great groups online, and we're fortunate enough that they've been kind of putting us in to play with these great groups every time. So you can catch us. That's on every Friday night. And then we might drop into other random things. We'll see what happens.
Well, we hope you'll drop in here again for sure.
I'd
And
love to.
I'm sure we will. We'll see you guys again. Anyway, and thanks to you, the RDI, who've been watching this. Hopefully you stuck around for the Q&A. Again, we have shows that we're doing. Wednesday night, we're doing live duos. Thursday, we have a long form wildcard show. Friday, we have a happy hour. And Saturday, we're doing these kinds of experiments and one-offs. And so, check that out. We also have online classes. And again, if you, we love that you shared the time with us. And if you'd like to donate, feel free to do that through our webpage and whatnot. And keep checking back with our webpage, Facebook, everything that we could possibly imagine that we will post stuff about shows. So come and check that out. And again, once again, thanks to you guys for being here. And
Thank you.
good night.
Hey.